Hey everyone, Clay here. Just wanted to let you know that the first issue of Beyond the White Knight, the newest chapter of Sean's Batman White Knight saga, is on sale now at your local comic book store, so grab yourself a copy and enjoy the first episode of Badass Beyond. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Badass Podcast, the Batman the Animated Series Show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series. But today is the inaugural episode of Badass Beyond.
And we're in person.
And we are in person for the first time in a bit. My name is Clay McCormick, and with me, as always, is Sean Murphy. How you doing, Sean?
Do you know what airplane boner is?
All right.
So I was telling my wife about this on a trip to Vegas once.
Uh-huh.
And I told her that a lot of men, when they get on a plane with the air pressure, cabin pressure changing as the plane goes up, a lot of men get unintentional erections.
Interesting.
And she was like, "You're full of it. That's stupid." And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can convince her of this because women are mystified by the male penises. And I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, see that guy over there?
Mystified or just not really interested?
Both, yeah. So I go, look at that guy over there. He has his tray table down. She goes, what does that mean? And I go, well, a lot of guys, when they get this, they are embarrassed, so they put their tray tables over their laps to hide, whatever. And she's not believing me. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is a thing. And not every man get it, but airplane boner is actually a phenomenon. And I had her hook, line, and sinker. And I should have just let her live the rest of her life thinking that was true. Everything I just said is a lie. But the point of me telling the story is I'm pleading with all of our readers, try this. Tell women they will, if you sell it correctly, they'll probably believe you. Even men, like if you wrap it in enough science with air pressure and flights and all that stuff, like you could probably convince your male friends that it's true as well.
Yeah.
My goal is to have this come back at me at some point where someone tells me about airplane boner. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, yeah, heard that one.
Well, if you're wondering how this show is going to be different from the regular show, Badass Beyond is actually now about how best to lie to the people you love and women in general. So off to a good start. No, but we will be talking about Batman Beyond, the series that followed Batman the Animated Series and the new adventures of old Batman, or whatever it's called.
Well said.
We'll be covering the first two episodes of Batman Beyond, which are the pilot, which are collectively titled as Rebirth. Story of the first half, story by Alan Burnett, teleplay by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini. Second half, story by Alan Burnett, teleplay by Stan Berkowitz. In 2019. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh, man, we didn't have a Back to the Future party type event.
In 2019, Bruce Wayne, the original Batman, retires due to failing health when his rescue of a kidnapped woman nearly goes wrong and he must resort to almost using a gun, the ultimate sin in his eyes. 20 years later, in 2039, Terry McGinnis discovers Batman's identity after the aging Bruce Wayne helps him fight off a gang of jokers with a Z, street punks enamored by the original clown prince of crime. After Terry's father is murdered, Terry seeks Bruce's help to avenge him. Terry steals the Batsuit to pursue his father's killer, a professional bodyguard named Mr. Fix. That was George Takei doing that voice?
I kind of thought it might be, but it didn't quite sound like him.
The one time he was hired to not sound like George Takei, I guess.
Yeah, he was a little bit less lispy.
Yeah, he didn't have the oh my.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I should have said.
Mr. Fixit, whose employer Derek Powers, the current CEO of Wayne Powers, is secretly using the company's resources to develop a biological weapon. Bruce Wayne, discovering the theft, deactivates the suit, but when seeing the now helpless Terry being punched out, sorry, when he sees the now helpless Terry being punched out, reactivates it so he can continue pursuing Fix. And in the end, Wayne appears at Terry's house to hire him as a, quote, special assistant. So yeah, Batman Beyond came out in 1999, if you couldn't tell from the opening credits, which is simultaneously futuristic and also incredibly dated at this point.
Yeah. They were high on, let's just make it look like the Matrix. Kids like the Matrix.
Yeah, it's a little bit of Matrix. It's got a lot of techno in there.
Yeah.
But like techno
hard pseudo metal too.
Yeah.
I remember a soundtrack for this coming out with a bunch of bands that I did not care about.
Oh, really?
My my consistent gripe through this entire series is actually going to be complaining about the music every single episode, because it's my least favorite part of this whole thing.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me too much throughout the episode until that last scene.
Yeah.
Where it just kind of turns into a Saturday morning cartoon kind of.
When they turn the music up and it's meant to tell you how to feel before anyone started acting or giving dialogue, it's like, all right, come on.
Yeah, yeah. But what's your history with this show? Did you watch it when it first came out? Did you like it as a concept when it was announced?
Good question. I was, what year was this? Sorry.
99.
So I was in college, freshman at Mass Art. I didn't have TV. I was going through that phase of I'm going to try to live my life without TV.
Yeah.
Plus, I didn't have any extra money, so I couldn't afford it, and neither could my roommate. So I remember going to the WB store a lot to buy stuff because that was awesome. Where you got your sweet jacket that I've never seen.
You've never seen it? You've never seen it?
No.
Oh, I've got to show it to you. You're here. I may as well show you.
I want you to wear it to a show.
I'll you know what? I'll wear it to the Boston show in April.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I'll wear my Deathstroke jumpsuit.
Yes, we'll see who people want to talk to. hanging out at the bar in a jean Superman jacket and a Deathstroke workout hoodie. Couple of adults.
Yeah. I'm sure I caught an episode here and there, but it wasn't enough to really pull me in. I remember sort of not being interested in the idea when it first came out. The way they animated Bruce, just the way they made his chin kind of lumpy and weird, and the eyes were jaundiced and yellow. I was just like, I don't know if this is my thing. But I was so busy doing other stuff that it just, I didn't pay attention to it. I think the first real experience I had with it, where I liked it, was the Return of the Joker series.
Right.
Because they had a flashback with old school Batman in it. And I've actually, I'm not as familiar with this series as I am with the original stuff, but I did go back and rewatch all this stuff 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years just to get ready for my book.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, is I'm working on, you're helping me put out Batman Beyond the White Knight while this is happening. So timing is really fortuitous.
Yeah, that'll be fun to talk about that as much as we can, obviously.
What about your interactions? How did you come across this?
I hated this idea when they first announced this, and it was basically, excuse me, basically just because I loved the animated series so much.
Yeah.
That when they announced they were doing this Batman Beyond thing, it meant that obviously the animated series was over and they were changing the approach. And I was just not open to the new idea at the time because, you like Batman for the Batman stuff. And they're doing like, what if it's Batman, but none of the stuff that you know about Batman? It's like, oh, okay, well, why are we doing this? I watched it a little bit. I think I probably watched a handful of the first season and maybe a couple episodes here and there, but I never watched it as much as I watched the animated series.
Yeah.
And it was only later. I actually still, this is going to be fun for me because I don't think I've seen the majority of these episodes.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was only later that I came back to it and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And Batman and Return of the Joker was a big part of that because when that came out, it was kind of like, oh, no, they're kind of taking this seriously, and it's really intense.
It's kind of that, when you're creating stuff, it's tricky because we say that we want, give me something new with Batman, give me something different.
Right.
But when they do it, we're like, ugh, this isn't my Batman.
Right.
But I think having some distance from it and realizing that this show had a huge cult following, and I'm like, well, these fans can't be crazy. Like, there's got to be something here. And then when it was pitched to me, like, it's basically what if Spider-Man was just starting out and Batman was helping him learn the ropes. And I thought, like, well, that's pretty solid, actually.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of, well, I tried to look this up, but I didn't find any evidence of this show being heavily based on Spider-Man. And not Spider-Man 299, but like Terry's parents, his dad's killed. He feels like it was his fault.
Sure.
A lot of the villains sort of line up with a lot of the rogues gallery of Spider-Man. Yeah, like Ink is like Sandman, and
Powers is kind of like Norman Osborn.
Yeah, even like the bullies at school. In the way that Terry is too, he's very jokey and he talks a lot while he's fighting, which is something Batman does not do. Yeah.
Terry's an interesting character though, because I don't know the show well enough.
Yeah.
Where if before this episode you had asked me to describe Terry McGinnis as a character, I don't really know if I could do it.
Yeah.
Because all I remember is his Batman voice, which I've never really found super convincing.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like a kid trying to have a growly Batman voice.
Yeah. But that's the point too.
Right.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I don't love it, but I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. And I was actually interested watching this because I haven't watched the first couple episodes of this 20 years maybe. I don't even know if I've ever watched them since they came out the first time.
Yeah.
And my most recent experience with Terry McGinnis is in reading the scripts for the book you're doing. And I was surprised at how angry you wrote him.
Yeah.
And going and watching these episodes, I was like, oh, that's kind of his thing. I didn't realize that. He's more of a hothead. He's got a lot more pent-up anger than, say, well, I mean, Bruce does, but Bruce doesn't really project it in the same way.
Right.
And Terry is very much like a high school kid who's angry about shit, and he's come from a broken home.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting, I think it's a really cool choice to have. Not only is he training a new Batman, but he's training one who's a little bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah, and it's sort of against his will too. Like, he didn't choose this at all.
Right.
Terry sort of broke in and stole the suit eventually, and had this tragedy happen. Well, I think one of my critiques was Terry didn't seem to really feel the death of his father that much.
Yes,
it's
I would
a kid's
agree
show.
with that,
It's only 22 minutes long. Like, I get it. So when I did my version, I thought, well, I introduce him as he's beating the shit out of Mr. Fix, and the cops are there to arrest him. And he's like, I don't want him arrested. I want him dead. And, so he's in the fit of rage, but I don't want to have another brooding Batman type. So I do want to get more back into, like, he's still a kid. He's got a girlfriend. He fucks with his little brother and steals his cereal and, all that stuff too. But yeah, while I was watching this, I was like, oh man, I really did, stick to the book in a lot of ways, even though I'm trying to reinvent the Beyond universe. You first meet Powers in a limousine. I do that too. He's making weapons with Bruce Wayne's company. I did that too. And I don't know if I forgot that I planned all this or if I just tripped on the same ideas, which happens a lot when I do books, it seems. But yeah, I think when people read my stuff, they'll be like, oh, this is actually, it's a reimagining, but it's still pretty close.
Yeah.
More close. As I was watching this, I realized, oh, this is a lot closer to the original stuff than I thought.
Yeah. And we are in the future of Gotham City, which is, you can tell it's the future because there's giant pyramid buildings the size of multiple football fields that nobody ever goes into.
They do that in the credits. They show this tiny cityscape, which I think was supposed to be like old Gotham, and then they show New Gotham built beyond it, and you see this giant pyramid, which is of course very Blade Runner. Yeah. But that's a trick that a lot of illustrators like Sid Mead used to do, is draw something big and basic in the background, like a giant, massive cubic building, and a bunch of little things in front of it. It's like you think the biggest thing is going to be closer to you, but if you flip it, it really punches up the sense of scale.
Right, yeah.
So that's well done. My only annoyance with it is I don't think that building, I forget what the kanji says, by the way, that Japanese symbol. I looked it up when I was writing my book, and I can't remember what it says now. They never use that building. They never describe what it is. It's never part of the story, the plot. And as I'm watching, I'm like, I've still got 4 issues left. Maybe I should find like a way for the final battle to take place in that building, and you can describe what the hell that building is.
How do you feel about the intro, aside from the music? But it's like, it is it is a very stylistically
Yeah.
late 90s kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of the PSA about not downloading stuff where it's like, you wouldn't steal a car, would you? It's like but yeah, how do you feel about it just as general as an opening to a TV show or a Batman show?
I like you know, there's a shot of Bruce Wayne turning and looking at the camera. What they did is they took one of the, like, you know, plastic models or clay models they made and filmed it and put a grain on it to make it, like, I thought that was cool. And some of the shots I thought were neat, but it didn't feel on model. Wasn't really the animation that's in the show. And I don't know, if I was involved in making this, yes, you want to break this apart from the regular Batman series. You can't use the gothic orchestral thing anymore.
Right.
So what do? And I'd love to be in the meeting when they talked about music, like, hey, you know what's going to be big in the future? 1989 really bad guitar solos. Yeah, that's going to be coming back.
Timeless.
Yeah. I mean, even in watching this when I was 19, I'm like, I know they think that they want me to think that this is really edgy music, but this music's already like 5 years old.
Yeah, it very much feels like mid-90s raver type music, industrial type music, which is definitely a new take for a kid show, full stop.
Yeah.
I've always felt like the intro never it feels stylistically kind of different from the rest of the show because it's so wacky and out there.
Yeah.
And the thing that always throws me off is that one shot of like the hand with the eyeball in it.
Yeah. Yeah, what is that?
I don't know. It's just it's creepy and it's weird.
You love Illuminati shit. Yeah, you should be all over that stuff.
I mean, is that what it is? I mean, if that's what it is.
Did you see the shot with the flat Earth in the background?
I mean, based on the horizon line, everything is flat. It's accurately depicted.
I mean, show me an air. It's weird how airplanes disappear off radar and just appear on the other side of the disc.
Right. Well, yeah, that's not how it works. See what happens? No, I won't get into it now. We'll wait till after the show.
This is a deep cut flat earther theory, by the way. I don't. Do you think we have any listeners who are genuine flat earthers?
Great question.
There's like 300 to 500 people out there who keep coming back for these.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, this show is all over the globe, so at least one of them.
Wait, what's a globe?
That's great question.
I think the opening scene was designed by Darwin Cook, I believe. I don't know where I heard that. You know, that might actually be incorrect, but it
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's all over. I don't know exactly how much he does on those. It's tough because his style is so similar to Bruce Timm's that I don't know where those two things stop and where one stops and the other one begins.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think that intro makes the show feel more dated than the show itself does.
I agree.
Yeah.
What would you have done instead? Like, it's 1999. You and I are in the meeting, and they're like, fellas, what should we do? One pitch is, let's redo the animated series credits, but instead of like a bank, we just tweak everything and make it more futuristic. But it's clearly an homage, and we keep the basic soundtrack, but we add a little bit of synthwave to it.
I see. It's interesting because, like, as far as music goes, 1999, the stuff that we listen to now that's like synth stuff, that's throwback stuff, was so out of fashion.
Yeah.
That doing that, I think that would probably be the better way to go.
It would have aged better because it's back in style.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what synthwave is, think of like a John Carpenter movie that doesn't exist with like cheap 1980s glorious, like, look up a band called Carpenter Brute, and that'll tell you everything.
Or John Carpenter movies that do exist, because a lot of it is influenced by.
I say that because a lot of these soundtracks I love. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I want to see this movie. Oh, it's just a concept album from Kavinsky.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the stuff from the movie Drive, I think, would be considered that.
Perfect. Yeah. The opening credits of Stranger Things is kind of like synthwave.
Yes, very much so. Yep. Yeah. I think that probably would be the better way to go.
But that wasn't an option in 1999.
No, it wasn't. And like, you have to.
I would have said no electric guitars. Stop your solos.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I would have filled it. I don't know why.
Well, weirdly enough, though, like when I think about the theme, the thing I think of is the.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
And so if you take that out, then you've just got like.
I know. Yeah. You need to go. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to decide what should go in there instead.
I think visually, the music doesn't bother me quite as much as I think the visuals do.
Yeah.
Because I like what they're doing. I like the approach. It just seems so detached from the show itself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know if I 100% know what I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you kind of do, but like, it just stylistically it feels detached, and it seems like they're trying a little too hard.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a better middle ground that they could have done something there.
Yeah. It's funny when you did the doodle 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 doodle. That isn't bad, honestly, as the music should go. It's when they get into like the jack, like that kind of shit.
Really lean into that stuff.
Some of the, I mean, I get having a digital sounding cyber soundtrack makes sense, but not this version of it. I don't know. Maybe there's an episode that's coming up that it will do it better, and it'll give us a better idea of like what we would prefer. But I agree with you. Visually, it's more off-putting. It doesn't really do a good job of summarizing what you're about to experience in the show.
But it does have like a bit of that, you said the Illuminati thing, but there is a bit of sort of like fast-cutting conspiratorial kind of, words will pop up and it's like
apathy, justice.
And that stuff is kind of cool,
yeah.
But I don't know if that stuff comes through in the show so much.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe I'm thinking about it too much.
Well, there's a shot where there are kids in a club dancing, and it's just on a cycle, and they just flash like, now they're green, now they're blue, now they're red. And it looks like something from that movie Go.
Right, right.
That's the only shot that looks like the actual animation of the cartoon.
Yes, yeah, that, and I think there's a couple shots of Batman flying or whatever. But
that's true. What do you think of the Batman suit?
I think it's really weird to see Bruce in it at the beginning of the show. Because obviously at this point, I think of it as Terry's suit.
Yeah.
My memory of it, I thought there was another suit, like a intermediary suit.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't really make a lot of sense because obviously he quits being Batman after the first scene.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting simplification of Batman as a concept because they streamline it down to basically a black shadow with the symbol on the chest.
Yeah.
And they give him the mouth that works through the suit and stuff. It's
yeah.
I don't hate it. I think it's one that works better in the show than it does if you just kind of saw a picture of it
or an action figure.
Yeah. It doesn't look great as an action figure.
Yeah, I thought the mouth annoyed me. And as I said in another episode, when I tried to redesign the suit and get rid of the mouth, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
The mouth, having the black shape with 3 white lines, 2 eyes and a mouth, that is iconic at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you can't not have a mouth. So I'll try to draw him with his mouth shut for a lot of the fight scenes because I still don't love looking at it. But, and if Terry's edge, as is hinted at in Return of the Joker, is he likes to talk. Well, then, the mouth makes sense. But as far as how I have people writing me like, is it nanotech? Is it like his mouth is like covered by transformer bits, but it's just open where his teeth are? Like, people really seem to be obsessed with
just
that
say
stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
Just say yeah. Just like, how did you know?
To buy issue 2, dude.
The only time I've ever run into that problem in a comic book where I started really thinking about the physics of how something like that works was during the Return of Superman arc. When they had the 4 Supermen who took over.
Right, yeah.
And they had Steel.
Yeah.
Whose Superman outfit is head to toe metal.
Mm-hmm.
But his helmet is a fully functioning moving face. And as far as I remember, it's not like liquid metal or some kind of special thing. It's just a steel helmet face thing.
Right. Well,
but he's still, you can still see his teeth and he still emotes and everything.
I thought it was like Colossus. But you're right. No, he doesn't have
I don't
skin
think so.
covered metal.
Yeah, he was just unless I'm missing a beat where
he was rendered that way, but the character background was not the same as obviously.
Yeah, unless I missed something and I'm misremembering it, I don't think that character is like a super scientist who develops a whatever.
Yeah.
I think he's just like he builds a armored suit.
Yeah.
And so I was reading the comic and I was just like, I can't get over the fact that he's just wearing a metal helmet, but it emotes like he's not wearing anything at all.
Side note, that movie Steel with Shaquille O'Neal playing him, I've never seen that, but that is a superhero movie. That is a Superman movie.
Sure is.
But the marketing on it was like to the average person, it doesn't look like a Superman movie at all.
Nope.
And they could have leaned in hard to, this is a new Superman, it's a black Superman. Like, you know, even in the late 90s, they would have gotten some press. I mean, fucking Shaquille O'Neal, you kidding me?
Right, yeah.
I liked the suit that they didn't go with like form-fitting metal. They went with like a helmet of some kind.
Yeah, they
right?
just, well, when they were doing that movie,
Yeah.
the first thing I thought was, how are they going to do the helmet?
Yeah.
And the answer is they just cut the mouth part out, so
Right.
it's a helmet and you can just see his mouth.
Oh, I got to look this up.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep talking.
Yeah. And that was before it was possible or in vogue to have a connecting superhero universe.
Right.
So it was like based on the Superman character, but it's not involved with Superman at all.
Right. All right. So where have we got Steel? Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what? I take it back. That doesn't look as good.
No, it doesn't.
Sorry.
I didn't want to burst your bubble, but in my head I was like, I don't remember that looking very good.
From the neck down, it looks okay. Yeah, from the flappy, yeah, it's not good. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for ruining a movie I've never seen.
Not a great movie either.
I heard I was reading a sketchbook that Alex Ross put out a long time ago. I think it was like a extra thing that came inside Wizard magazine, and it was like a tour through his studio.
I think I have that.
It's like a little pamphlet type thing, right? And I didn't know who Alex Ross was at the time. I think this was like 98 or 99, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in a trench coat with a fedora the whole time and like dressing up like he thought he was Clark Kent. And even at age 18, I was like, oh, Alex, what are you doing, buddy?
Was he doing that to hang out, or was he doing that to take reference photos?
Oh, he was just dressed as low-key Dick Tracy for the whole shoot.
Sure.
And then it was all about his action figures and his he's living the nerd dream, basically. You know what? Good for him. But so part of the book Kingdom Come, he has old Bruce Wayne. And he thought, well, Bruce is so beat up by this point, he's going to need like an exoskeleton to just move around. So he gave him an exoskeleton, but he used Darth Vader's neck chin thing with like the dish under the chin, whatever, that scoop thing. And he thought that was awesome. And he sent it to Bruce Timm thinking like, hey, I know you're doing this new future thing. Check out this. How about this for a costume? And set aside the fact that that would be impossible to animate. Bruce Timm wrote him and he's like, no offense, but I fucking hate this. Something that harsh. And,
Yikes.
And I'm glad they didn't go that way. No offense to either of them, really.
Well, it's funny you should say that, actually, because one of the episodes of this show that I definitely remember watching is there's an episode where I think it might be the Ink episode.
Yeah.
Where Bruce goes out into the field and the suit that he's wearing is essentially the Kingdom Come suit. It's like a big, bulky, kind of looks almost more like an Iron Man suit to a certain extent.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, and I watched that one specifically because I had known that they were going to do that somehow,
Right,
and I loved Kingdom Come.
Yeah. When in the books, I think in the show too, I used to read the comics of this, and there's one or at least one where Bruce has to suit up and go out, and he doesn't have a costume, so he puts on the Gray Ghost costume.
Really?
Oh my god, I was geeking out hard.
Oh man.
Yeah, that brought me in. Like, I don't love this show. I was younger. I didn't love it at the time. But Gray Ghost coming back, hell yeah.
That's the kind of stuff you can do in the comics because it's like nobody's really paying attention to you, what you're doing over there.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, what the hell? Go for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think you could do that in the show, but I don't know if it would land.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same people watching the show at this point, so that callback might not work. But the comics, you can do whatever you want.
I just realized. So I have a scene in issue 3 where Bruce is putting together a new bat suit for himself, but he's not Batman, so he doesn't want to have like the symbolic Batman shit. He's more like trench coat and takes an armored vest and cuts off the ears, whatever. I should have had him have a Gray Ghost suit and retrofit some of that. I should have had him use something out of that just as a geek moment for myself, but it's already drawn and colored.
You could have used the goggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might have. I don't know.
No, I don't think he needs them.
Yeah.
I struggled because I didn't want to cover his face because I thought he looked so cool, just exposed.
Yeah.
And everyone knows who he is in my book anyway, so there's no point. But there's all these cameras all over Gotham, and the idea is he's going to go low tech to stay off the grid. So he wears a suit that like hides his body heat, and it's not metal, it's not magnetic, it's not electrical, so he's going to be a ghost by going low tech. And I had this sketch where he just had his face exposed with his beard and his spiky gray hair. I'm like, man, that looks so good. So I'm like, well, I'll give him a hood, and then that kind of hides his face. But when he's swinging around, his face is exposed plenty. So one of the criticisms I know I'm going to get is, if Bruce is trying to stay away from cameras, why doesn't he just put on a different mask? Which is a good fucking argument. Oh, well.
What is a mask but a hood for your face, really? So what do you think about this first scene where we see the last mission that Batman goes on, where he essentially has a heart attack mid-fight, and is weakened to the point that he reaches for a gun? I think fantastic beat. I think that's really, really great. And if you're trying to write a moment where excuse me, where Batman decides it's time to quit without involving someone physically destroying him, or something like that, perfect way to do it.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. Yeah. I also liked that look. He's old, he's got gray hair, but he's not craggy and falling apart yet.
Yeah.
I kind of wish like he looked like that for the whole series.
he'd be too strong looking, though.
I know.
I like old man Bruce because he's still, I think the Bruce Timm body type actually works really well to have him sort of have like an old person hunch.
Yeah, he's hunched over,
but still maintaining that sort of Bruce Timm V shape.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that works really nicely. Yeah, I think he would have been too fit if they kept him that way.
What do you think of the yellow eyes, though?
Interesting choice. I mean, they definitely make him look unwell between the cane and the eyes.
Yeah, he looks gross and weird, and I don't know what I would have done differently. I mean, I gave mine a beard and made him still fit. So, like, I was gonna give my Bruce a kind of a saggy 6-pack, and I tried to draw it, and I'm like, yeah, let's just make him ripped.
Yeah, my favorite thing about your book is that everybody has aged into the point where they're visibly older, and Batman just as kind of has gray hair now.
Yeah, no, he's aged from the neck up.
Yeah,
but all he's been doing is burning calories, putting down prison riots.
Yeah,
so sure, you get a 6-pack doing that.
Looks
You've
great.
seen prisoners get into shape. All they have time to do is push.
You should have given him like the that skinny old man fit bod, like the kind where they only wear tank tops, and you don't want to mess with them because even though they're old, they still look like they probably know where to hit you to really hurt you.
Sort of like Picard in some ways. Maybe not.
Only not so
15
depressingly
years ago,
old.
Picard.
Yeah.
15 years ago, Picard.
He looks so old in that show.
Yep. His voice, too.
It is. I hate saying it, but it's kind of distracting.
Pure fucking hubris, Clay.
Yeah, well, they haven't done that again yet, so it's a plus.
Well, Clay and I have a debate over whether season 2 is better, and we'll have to hash it out later when we go get cigars.
Well, there's a whole other podcast you can listen to if you want to hear me talk about that, which is the Penske File podcast. It's actually on our Patreon, so you're going to have to throw us a couple bucks to hear it. But
and we're going to review The Batman next, too. We can put that on Patreon if you want.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Just squeeze some money out of these freeloaders.
Got to get it. We love all of you. Thank you for listening.
Can I say what I don't like about the Batman costume?
Sure. Yeah, please do.
The mouth thing bugs me, but I used it myself, so it's cool. I like the simplicity of it. I like the circular belt and the red, I don't like the long ears. They're just a little too long for me. But you're a long ear guy, but I'm guessing you like the long ears if they're done a certain way with a cape.
Generally, yes, but honestly, the ears don't bother me in this because they've stripped so much of the other stuff away. Like, he doesn't have a cape.
Right.
And so I feel like having the long ears really says Batman.
Yeah.
And if they were shorter, he might just look a little bit too much just like a person in a black suit.
Right.
So I think the longer ears work. The Batman the Animated Series Batman had kind of shorter ears, and I think that works there because all of the other stuff is still intact.
Right.
Like the silhouette still works because of the cape and the colors of the suit and everything.
Yeah.
But here, you've really, if you're looking at this guy in silhouette, if you take the ears off, it's just an outline of a guy.
Does not, yeah.
The one thing, some angles though, he looks like a bunny. Like there's some angles where they're like, all right, maybe they're a little too long.
Yeah. I'm also going to repeat my confusion about how these extending wings work exactly. Do they attach to his wrists? Do they just float around?
They work exactly the same way that he can manifest batarangs like out of his wrist.
That doesn't. that doesn't bother me as much.
Okay.
I know, but that's clear. Like, at least you know where the batarangs come out of. I don't know where the wings come out of. I don't know where they attach. Sometimes they seem to be stiff enough where he can hang his arms down and still fly. Sometimes he has to have his arms out. It's very unclear. Some artists draw them like they're always out. So even when he's punching, there's this like red line.
Oh, sure. I mean, like the Spider-Man webs.
Yeah, exactly. Like I kind of experimented with all of those and even tried a squirrel suit type approach.
Oh, interesting.
Which didn't work, and that's actually one of my beefs with the Batman. We'll get to.
Oh
later.
yeah, we'll talk about that. Yes.
Okay. I feel like if I had done this, I would have argued for don't make him fly. Make him be able to crawl like Spider-Man and stuff. He swings around. I don't know if I would have pushed for a cape or not, but I don't. The rocket boots and the flying thing, and because the design of the wings seems so weird and inconsistent, I don't know if I would have pushed for that.
Well, that's another thing that I think works because of the suit redesign. Because I don't know if you've got that look with no underarm wings or anything, and he's just sort of grappling, hooking around.
Yeah.
You don't get the big flowy cape and stuff that kind of
need the cape then.
Makes that look more impressive, I think.
Or a sweet trench coat.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it works with Spider-Man. Well, first of all, I think it would be too much like Spider-Man. I think he would be essentially occupy the same space.
That's a good actual legal concern as well at that point. Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
No, see, it's different because Spider-Man's a red costume with a black spider. This is a black costume with a red bat.
Boom.
So, very different. It's
Suck
just
it,
like
legal
ours goes
department.
dun 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 dun. So it's different.
What was Vanilla Ice's real name? Mark something?
I don't remember.
Yeah, whatever.
Something Van Winkle, I think.
Seriously?
I think so.
All right, you keep talking. I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, I think the suit works because I think the wings in the suit work because you need that sort of extra boost. Is it Rob Van Winkle?
Robert Matthew Van Winkle. Yep. Wow. You know, I would have changed my name too if I had a Van Winkle last name. That's pretty lame.
But yeah, I think it works because you're taking away the cape. You don't want to have him just look like Spider-Man. And also
or Spidey 299.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, well, Spider-Man 299 kind of has a cape, doesn't he?
He has a tattered...
That's one thing I've never understood. It's like he's like you're saying, he's got a tattered web thing.
Yeah.
Never totally understood that.
So it's a Cinco de Mayo costume, or no, Dia de la Muerte costume, because he's half Hispanic. And he sort of puts that costume on, and that's just his costume forever. And there's like this tattered cape from under the armpits thing that just is always there. Yeah. Just for some texture.
Yeah, that's a costume that I love. I don't know if I'd ever want to draw it.
Yeah.
There's two costumes that I don't know if I'd ever want to draw. That one and the original Archangel costume, where he's got all those like purple lines and stuff going over on his arms and everything.
Oh, the Jim Lee version?
No, the very original one. So like
Angel, he was like a guy with feathery wings and blue and white, right?
The first Archangel costume is like the Walt Simonson one.
Okay.
Which is he's got the blue face and he's got like a black suit with it's either black or purple with like fuchsia colored lines.
Okay.
Like zigzag lines all over it.
Right.
And it's still he had it all through the 90s though. So whatever the 90s one is, it's the same costume.
Yeah, okay.
And it like every time I tried to draw that as a kid, I was like, I don't know how these lines are supposed to go.
Yeah.
That's a lot of shit to keep straight as far as the design goes and like figure out how they move as the guy moves.
I bet that if you do it enough, it just goes into your brain and you can,
I'm sure.
You can sort of
I think
plaster it onto any anatomy.
I think it looks great.
Yeah.
My preferred version of Archangel, but I don't know if I'd ever want to draw it.
Yeah. The hardest thing I've ever heard drawn costume-wise is the Huntress.
Oh, yeah.
One from the 90s that when I was doing commissions years ago, someone made me do Huntress, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I spent so much time figuring these shapes out that it just looked like a puzzle where I pieced together. It had no natural flow at all.
Yeah, and it kind of is all over the place too. Where sometimes she's got that like midriff with the stripe going down the middle.
Yeah, there's a cross somewhere. There's like Wolverine ears kind of coming off the face.
Yeah.
So, and those are already a pain in the ass to figure out how you're going to make yours work.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that costume was a disaster. I think it was like the '90s costume.
So Spider-Man 299 is actually an interesting thing to bring up because there is a lot of similarity.
There's even on YouTube you can find out like who would win. It's called like Ultimate Death Battle, and they have Spidey 99 versus Batman Beyond. It's pretty interesting. So I'm a massive Spidey 299 fan, and I would love to do that book, but Marvel's never going to hire me. So I've decided, well, I'll just do Batman Beyond. And this is sort of like my Spider-Man 299. And I pulled out some Rick Leonardi, and I'm looking at my old Spidey issues, trying to make him more Spider-like. And drawing Batman, he's very, statuesque. Whereas drawing Spider-Man or Terry, he's always moving. Like, you hear different theories about how to draw Spider-Man. Like, you draw the upper body and lower body, and they're folded over, but don't think about how his spine connects. Like, there's a lot of weird theories out there about how to best handle him.
Yeah, I've never I haven't drawn Spider-Man enough to really get into that, but anytime I'm sketching Spider-Man, that's my first thought is like, how does this even work?
Yeah, I think it takes a few maybe an issue or two before any artist starts to figure out like, okay, it's more twisty and bendy. And,
that's why I like McFarlane's Spider-Man, because he was like, what if his knees, his feet, and his head were they just switch places. So those are higher than his head. Don't worry about how hips or stomachs or anything work, but it's just like his legs are 9 miles long and somehow go over his head like a contortionist.
Yeah. Well, so Larson was doing that too, actually.
Yeah.
And I think it works pretty well. Like, I love that stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, it's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, do you think there's a little bit of influence?
Even the spikes on the forearms are the same. We're looking at it right now.
Oh, Spider-Man 2099. Yeah. I mean, this was in 1992, so this is a decent amount of time before Batman Beyond, and it's very similar.
It is. And I'd also point out that Spidey 299 was heavily ripped off from Ronin by Frank Miller.
Was it really?
Not the costume, but the world and some of the stuff. Like, when I reread Ronin, I was like, this is a lot like Spider-Man 299.
Oh, I've actually never read Ronin. I think it's the one big Miller book that I've never read. Yeah. But I remember when the movie came out, part of me was like, is this based on the comic?
Oh, with Robert De Niro?
It's very much not.
Actually, that's a top 10 movie for me. I could talk about that movie forever.
Yeah, great movie. But I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't know, maybe this is based on a comic book.
And there's nothing in there about Ronins or Japanese culture at all. It's a French car chase movie with American actors in it.
The Ronin is a metaphor.
Yeah, I know. We get to the guy, this like rich guy with a beard who loves to paint D&D figures, and he explains why the title of the movie is basically Ronin.
Best way to do it.
But that's got to be like top 3 car chase movies of all time. Yeah. With very bland looking cars, which is even better.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that. I gotta watch that again.
Yeah. If you do a review of that, you and Wes, give me a call.
Absolutely.
I'd like to be part of that.
But yeah,
I like the Spidey 299 costume a lot better.
Yeah, it's got the I remember even as I was reading the comic, when it came out,
Leonardi cover, man,
and they explain where he gets the suit from. I was like, what? It's just like a Mardi Gras costume.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the thing on the chest isn't really a spider. It's this like skull thing, but it looks awesome.
It's got 2 face. Like, it shouldn't. In a way, his face doesn't look like his face. The face on his costume, if you look at it quickly, looks like his face is on his chest.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on the Spider-Man 2099 podcast.
Honestly, this is such a better design. Yeah, that cover, man. So Leonardi is going to be at the Wicked Awesome Con.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I remember meeting him once or twice, and I'm excited. So I had a panel where Terry is, fighting, and I ripped off, homaged that Spidey 299 cover. And it's weird when you look at an artist that's doesn't draw like you, and you try to put him in your work, how it sort of takes over, but it also ruins what you had in mind. Like, I really struggled because the way Leonardi draws, like the bubbly thighs and the skinny legs and like the flappy feet, I can make those lines, but it won't look correct in my art. Right, so I had to redo stuff to make him more angular, because I realized I'm just more angular and he's more bubbly.
My entire career as an artist, I've wanted an excuse to be able to draw feet like this because it's so stylized and I mean, obviously they know what they're doing, but it's like, anytime I've tried to do it, it's like it just doesn't. I can't.
Yeah,
do
like
this.
look at that leg. How bendy.
Yeah.
Where's the bone exactly in that leg?
Great question.
Impossible, but
Yeah.
it doesn't fucking matter. It looks great.
Yep.
Yeah. Whenever I see Rick, I'm like, I probably say the same thing over and over. He's like, yeah, kid, you've been telling me this for 15 years now.
So what do you think? What do you think of the Batman Beyond Gotham with the
Pyramid?
The pyramid and the specifically one of the other things that I remember very clearly from Batman Beyond is the newscasters.
Oh yeah.
How they do that weird like are they
Yeah.
supposed to be robots or like digital?
They're glowy silhouettes.
Yeah, it's a very interesting choice.
Yeah, I think that sort of I kind of like that. I think that actually aged okay for me. There's sort of a Minority Report scene in the beginning where they're in this like elevator going up the side of a building, and these jokers with a Z are interrupting, and you know the news is there, and you have like this futuristic glowy neon news reporter. You're right, maybe it could be a CGI, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another thing I should probably try to throw into the book. And now that I'm thinking, I already drew some newscasters, and I whiffed it because I didn't do that at all.
Too late now.
I used the same chick that I used in the other newscast in White Knight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the black lady that looks like Gail from CBS this morning.
Oh, sure.
Well, I drew her and Charlie Rose, and then Charlie Rose happened, and then I'm like, all right, well, I guess it's just her now.
Yeah, those reporters, those digital or whatever, is another style that they kind of use a few times, where like that sort of very, very heavily shadowed, very graphic look, where there's like lots of really bright. Specifically, I'm thinking of the end with the radiation scene with Powers.
Yeah,
when the radiation lights are on,
it's very similar. Yeah,
yeah, it's very, very blocky shadows, no like visible eyes and stuff. There's it's almost like they're getting rid of boundary lines in favor of just white on black with color.
Yeah,
it's a cool look. I would say that's definitely a look that is unique to this show versus the other ones.
Yeah. When they have Terry go invisible too, they didn't do it in these 2 episodes. They just sort of darken where his shadows are, but where the light sources are in his costume, you just see right through it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you mentioned he goes invisible. He doesn't do that here, but I was thinking about that because I didn't even realize the Spider-Man connection, but I was watching this going, this is actually kind of similar to Miles Morales. Because does he also have electric powers? Terry can like electrocute people, right?
I don't. His Batarang can.
Yeah, or something. So he's got like stun capabilities. He can go invisible.
Yeah,
kind of similar to Miles Morales. So it's all one big universe. Doesn't matter who rips off what.
So I got some people coming after me lately online, and it's probably like 10 people out of how many readers do I have? So it's not a thing, but I think it's interesting. The internet keeps trying to suck me into like culture war shit. I did this interview. It's called a roundtable interview. What happens is DC gets like 3 or 4 news outlets all at once. So I call in and they just go around the table asking me questions, and I just sort of talk for a bit, and then they decide what their stories will be. And in this hour-long thing, I mentioned once, oh yeah, I made Terry half Asian, because a lot of people mistakenly think Terry is half Asian in this show, which is weird because his parents are both clearly white. But I feel like because there's so much kanji, and once I described this, I said there's too much kaiju in Gotham, which sounds like a really great story. And with the whole Blade Runner vibe, and because Terry's got like really straight jet black hair, like I think a lot of people mistakenly just assumed that he was half Asian all this time.
Yeah.
So for my version of Terry, I had a scene where I'm drawing his mom, and I'm like, well, I'm going to make her full Asian. So his dad can be like redhead white dude, and his mom, whatever. And it wasn't even like for diverse points or trying to be woke, which I consider myself to be woke. It was just like a thing to put in there. And I wasn't even going to have any character mention it. It's just in the story. And when I said that in the interview, that's what 2 of the 4 news outlets went with. Like, Terry is now half Asian. So you have people who are like, oh, Disney's going woke again, and SJW, and oh, Sean's only doing this to try to appease the people who turned against him, and making up this whole narrative, whatever. Yeah. And I thought about responding to it, and I had a few responses written that I was going to post on Instagram, and I thought better of it. I'm like, don't give these people I got enough responses from Asian friends of mine who are like, "This is great, thank you so much. Like, I see myself in this character now. This is awesome."
So just to confirm, that's why you're doing this for the points, right? For appeasing people. No,
I mean, if you don't know me, I could see why it looks that way. Especially because I've been fighting to make Robin black for a while. I get it. Like the moves I'm making, it looks like I'm just doing this for brownie points. But people who listen to this know I'm not like that.
I don't even think it looks like that. I think because I honestly thought the same thing about Terry because I think I did the same math in my head that you did. And so, like, I didn't even consider the fact that his last name was McGinnis.
No, there is nothing.
Not that doesn't mean, obviously you could have one parent who's Asian as the way you drew him.
Yeah.
But like, I just assumed, based on kind of the way they made him look, and the world that they built, that he had some sort of Asian influence.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit if you if you decide to do that? Who cares?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. I mean,
I didn't realize something said that Terry McGinnis absolutely cannot be anything other than entirely Irish.
I mean, to people that love to get online and dive into this garbage, it's their favorite thing to do is to have more things in the culture war to dunk on.
Yeah.
And this just gave them fuel. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what I said. It's just like, that's all they want is to go online, score some points on me, and just move on to something else. You know?
It is weird though, because like, not to get into the whole thing, but like if those are the things that they're pulling out of your interview and that's the headline they're running with, it feels like it's feeding into that machine.
I wish I hadn't said that at all, is what I meant to point out before. I wish I had just let it be. If you happen to notice his mom is Asian, awesome, but it's not a point of the story. And I feel like it's racist to like focus on that. Like the idea of introducing different cultures is like to the point where it doesn't matter what race you are anymore. Like what race you are is as uninteresting as what hair color you are. That's kind of the goal. And I know it's not that simple.
Right.
But yeah, I wish I hadn't said that at all because I know that the news goes for clicky things and that's just like, here we go, woke headline. And let's just, so having the way it was blasted at readers, I can see why some of them were triggered that way. But if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't even mention the fact that he was fucking Asian because it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I wouldn't have even mentioned Robin being black, honestly, because like I don't want to. That's not what my book is about,
Just wait till we start doing interviews for Red Hood. I'm stepping on all those mines, even if I have to make it up.
You say that, but you're actually much more careful about what you say than I am. And that's a shock to literally nobody listening to this right now.
Time to make some waves. Got to get people to buy that book.
It's funny because I wrote to you, I'm like, man, you should be talk to the editor more, deal with the artists. You got this Red Hood book coming out. Like, can you handle this? I don't have to because I'm really busy, and I don't want you to hold back. Like, I don't want to step on Sean's feet. Like, no, they're your feet. You do what you have to do. But I thought, do I need to like talk to Clay about how to interview? And all this press is something that he's not used to because he's being thrust into like a big deal Batman book with like Olivier Coipel covers and Simone DeMeo art. So is he ready? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure Clay is less likely to put his foot in his mouth than I am, so I'm not worried about him. If anything, I should tell you to be more aggressive.
Oh, listen, I can cut a wrestling promo when I have to. Whatever I have to say to get people to buy that book. But yeah, we talked a bit about the new powers in the suit. What about Powers as a character, the actual person Powers? Derek Powers.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, you get a sense of who he is, but there's not a whole lot of depth there so far. What about you?
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. He turns into a radiation monster.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that Terry is obviously a little bit. He's new at this. He's a little bit rough around the edges. A little bit of a hothead. He smashes one of those gas canisters. I've seen The Rock. I know how much VX gas it would take to kill like 1,000 people in San Francisco.
Yeah.
He could have just potentially exposed a lot of people to that gas.
By Rock math, that's at least
by the Rock math, yes.
100,000 people dead.
Yes.
But he threw it. How did it explode? Did Powers shoot it? Was Terry responsible for it breaking, or did something Powers
No,
do
I think
break it?
I think Powers is responsible for it, but it's like facilitated by Terry somehow. I don't.
Yeah.
I think I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, I think that would follow the rules because I don't want Terry just smashing VX gas onto people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, he crashes that plane with Mr. Fix in it,
That's true.
and at no point does Bruce go like, "Hey, what we got one thing we got to talk about here as far as
It's kind of a
where
rule.
the line is."
Yeah.
But yeah, Powers is interesting. I think they kind of lay the groundwork pretty well for him.
Yeah.
As obviously everybody knows he's responsible for the dad's death, but the show hasn't explicitly said that.
Yeah.
He's got ties to Bruce Wayne because he now runs the merged companies, which is interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting to me how they have to sort of just make him different than Lex Luthor, because the voices are kind of the same sometimes. The attitudes, like even when I draw him, I keep thinking, "Oh, this isn't Lex Luthor."
He's got that same kind of like Lex Luthor-y look where his like eyes are half closed.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like smiling.
Droopy eyes. Yeah.
Comes off as creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Now that you said that, I realize I've been drawing animated Lex Luthor face because he has full lips, and Derek Powers does not. But he does have a hook nose. I basically drew a Powers Luthor mix in my book.
That works.
Cool. I gave him the same suit with like the 4 buttons and the weird. It's funny whenever you show 3-piece suits at the future, you always have to decide how yours are going to be different.
Oh sure, yeah. Giant pants, zoot suits from the 20s.
You squared off shoulders, or in Back to the Future 2, he literally wore 2 ties.
Yes, the 2 tie. I'm upset that 2015 didn't have the 2 tie.
I don't even remember
style.
how that worked physically, because you don't have 2 necks.
The voice of Derek Powers is Sherman Howard, who the voice sounded familiar, but I wouldn't have been able to guess who it was. You recognized him from Star Trek?
Yeah, Next Gen. There was an episode called Almost Human. There was a kid that they found, and Picard was trying to teach this kid how to be human again, and there was this alien that I thought he had claim, and this actor played the other guy.
Oh, sure.
But I'm sure he's been in more notable things.
Yeah, I recognized him as Bub the zombie from Day of the Dead, who's sort of the central zombie who begins to like learn a bit.
Okay.
Really great performance from him, but I mean,
yeah,
with all the makeup on, I wouldn't have picked that out. And he doesn't talk really, so I wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's good. This guy's voice is very noticeable. So obviously a really good voice actor.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about these shows versus, and I know we've probably talked about this, versus the animated movies. Mm-hmm. The voice performances on the movies now always feel kind of flat.
Yeah.
And in these shows, they're so on point.
It's marketing, man. I remember Prince of Egypt. I think it was Brad Pitt did a voice.
Yeah.
And they were big on promoting.
Was it I know Val Kilmer did.
Val Kilmer did one too.
Oh, they both did. Oh, okay. I don't know.
I don't know.
You could be
Brad
right.
Pitt.
It doesn't matter.
Brad Pitt did do a voice, and it fell flat and ever since then, every time I see Brad Pitt talk, I think his voice is kind of weird. The way he says words, he's visually stunning and acting-wise amazing. And like I love everything else about him, but his voice is maybe like an 8 when the rest of him is at 10s. So yeah, having a good voice actor, his voice has to be at a 10. But with the way marketing works is they want to have some splashy names to throw around, so they just hire people you recognize. And same thing, like I like Val Kilmer, but I don't think about his voice at all.
Right. He's one who I could definitely recognize it.
Right.
But I don't know if I would consider him like a.
Outside of I'm Your Huckleberry, his voice is not the most remarkable thing about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish they would just go. It's the same thing when they cast musicals. My wife complains about this all the time. They make a musical and they cast names, and why don't you just cast people that can actually sing really well? Like
it's the Robin Williams effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were watching very recently. We watched Moana and Encanto. For I had never seen either one of them.
Yeah,
and I was really interested to see how much Robin Williams hangover there still is. Because obviously he was so revolutionary in the performance as the genie in Aladdin.
Right.
I feel like every one of these movies afterwards always had that genie character. So you get like Eddie Murphy playing the dragon in Mulan.
So that worked because Eddie Murphy's voice is a 10 already.
Right. And he's also, both of those guys are master improvisers and stuff.
Exactly.
And as it goes, like you watch the movies now and there's still always a character who has like some of that DNA still in it. And it's usually always played by a huge star.
Yeah.
Like The Rock in Moana is like arguably the second lead, but it's still kind of that same sort of character where he's more aware of the fourth wall than everybody else is. That
Uh-huh.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting how much they still lean on that kind of model.
Yeah. It's funny. I think The Rock's voice is like at a 9. He could, even if he wasn't as giant and remarkable as a specimen of a human being, he could probably still be pretty decent at voice acting.
Yeah.
But it helps that he's also The Rock. You
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
Who else was there that I was listening to? And I'm like, this guy's voice sucks. I'll think of it in a bit.
But I mean, in Encanto, the lead for Encanto is one of the girls from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, who I'm not really that familiar with the show.
Oh yeah, which girl?
Stephanie Beatrice. She's
the...
kind of like a hard ass on the show.
Oh yeah, she's the Latino one.
Yes.
She's got a great flat voice, actually.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know her voice,
Yeah.
but I think her performance in that movie is fantastic.
Yeah.
And she just gets it. She knows how to do it.
Very like alpha female voice, but she make a great
In the movie,
Montoya.
In the movie, she's very much not that. She's a lot more like bubbly and bright.
Oh yeah.
They actually apparently were going to cast. They wanted to cast her as a different character who was tougher.
Yeah, the strong sister. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
and then they met her and they were like, "Oh, you're actually not like that at all."
Yeah, like, oh, you're an actress.
Yeah. But I thought she was great. I mean, she's got a great voice. But anyway, I think the casting we've only really the only really standout voices are Powers and McGinnis. Obviously, Kevin Conroy is fantastic. George Takei, never would have guessed that.
Yeah, as a tough black assassin, basically. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping that the rest of the voices kind of stand up to muster.
So the voice of his girlfriend is a known voice actress. She also does the voice in Futurama.
Oh, really?
Amy Wong.
Okay.
I want to say she's Asian, but I don't know.
I think I skimmed the IMDb. I believe
I've been
is,
mislabeling Asians a lot lately, in case you haven't seen Twitter.
Well, in your comic, just write the voice of the girlfriend.
Got it.
As portrayed by an Asian person.
Nice, I'll do that.
Yeah. So what do you think about this as a pilot for overall, as like a first episode?
I like the explanation of why Bruce quit. I like that Terry has agency, and it showed the tragedy of his dad dying and his motivation to fix it. And you set up the bad guy. Like, it checks all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I don't love it, though.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I think it's pretty good. We're watching the version that's on HBO Max, which has it split into 2 episodes, and I remarked that it's a weird place to cut because it basically the first episode, quote unquote, ends with Terry basically just going to Wayne Manor, and it's like it's not really that interesting of a point to end it, but I understand that's why they end it. And then even the ending, the full ending, like I don't know, it kind of doesn't make me as excited as I feel it should to just have it be Bruce showing up and being like, I would like you to get me coffee on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah. The ending part, I felt that scene was kind of weak, where Bruce came over to Terry's house and pretended to want to hire him to be a go get this, get that, whatever.
Yeah. I would like, and maybe I think they probably get into this stuff as it goes, but I would have liked a scene where Terry comes back to Wayne Manor and Bruce basically says something like, I can take that suit back and we could never see each other ever again. Like that kind of thing, where there's some sort of real sort of acknowledgement of what they're both getting into and how Bruce kind of still, it's like, this was a one-off thing, but why are we working together? What is it that we should be continuing down this road for instead of, but I mean, maybe you don't need that because you saw them do what they did. Yeah. Bruce obviously sees that they have a common enemy and Terry doesn't have a dad. Yeah. I don't really know if you need to
you could have had
spell it out.
Bruce's approach. So when Terry steals a suit, Bruce wants it back, but once the day is won, does Bruce just offer him a job and make it easy, or does he like accidentally leave the suit in Terry's backpack?
Right.
It doesn't actually spell it out for him. Could he be more of a vague sensei? But the way he does it by going into Terry's house with his family is another not bad move, because Bruce doesn't have a family. Maybe he kind of likes that Terry does have a family and he's around a family. Like, probably makes him feel it's a warmth when Terry goes home, whereas when Bruce goes home, there isn't. So I think it's an interesting choice.
Or the cynical reading is Bruce knows that if Terry's going to be lying to his mother all the time, he needs to make it look good.
Oh, that too.
Which, another Spider-Man parallel, that reminded me a lot of the scene with Spider-Man from Civil War, where Tony Stark goes to Peter Parker's place to recruit Spider-Man.
Right, yeah. It's funny because eventually in Justice League Unlimited, they sort of retcon and say that Bruce cloned Terry.
Yeah, I know that. I
And
learned
that
that
divides
much,
fans big time.
I learned that much later, that it turns out that Terry is actually biologically his son or a clone or something.
I learned this when I was working with Scott on Batman.
Spoilers, I guess.
Yeah. Batman issue 17 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Scott took that idea and ran with it. So Bruce always had a computer system set up in the Batcave where whenever he dies, there would be another clone released so that Gotham would always have Batman.
Yeah.
And as Gotham turns into like Future City and then destroyed Mad Max City and whatever, like there's always different eras of Batman, which is a cool idea. But for me, it's like, it's too sci-fi for Batman. Personally, like that's too like H.G. Wells sci-fi for me. Like a little soft sci-fi like Blade Runner, I'm down with that. But like, anyway, so when I made him Asian, it's also a way of saying this Terry will never be a clone of Bruce, who's not Asian.
Well, I don't know how that works. You still need two parts to make that person there.
Well, technically, my Bruce is 0.01% Arabic because his ancestor is from Lebanon.
Okay, all right. So I mean, well, that'll be what I lead with when we put this out.
Yeah. Oh, I made him Arabic to get social justice points, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Well done. Well done. I like that they have the highly futuristic technology of tiny discs, which
I know, man. When are we gonna get there, huh?
We were there. Nobody cared. We had mini discs.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit about mini discs.
As Tommy Lee Jones said in Men in Black, he's holding it up. He's like, "Yep, I'm gonna have to buy the White Album again."
Yep, exactly. Yeah, he was very right. I just find it so fascinating that we're in the middle of CDs in the 90s. CDs are the biggest thing.
Mini CDs. Boom.
Yeah, like why would you jump?
They're too bulky.
Yeah, why would you jump to straight up digital when you could go to mini CDs?
But so the internet was a thing, but it was like Prodigy. It was real early.
Yeah.
And I don't think it occurred to the writers that
Prodigy,
information can just
the band Prodigy or the because that fits with the tone of the show.
It does. Yeah. Actually, I think Prodigy might have done. No. We'll have to dig up that soundtrack now because I think bands like Prodigy Light or a lot of those
bands. All right,
bands.
I'll have to try and find that.
You know what? You keep talking. I'm looking it up right now. I think this is going to be worth it. Also, I have 2 more contenders for best rock lyrics.
Oh, okay.
But we
All
can
right.
end on that.
Yes. But yeah, I always find it funny that they go straight from CDs instead of jumping to digital. They go to tinier CDs. Like I think there was some sort of not understanding or not really thinking broadly enough about how digital storage would be a thing.
Right.
And so everyone always represents it as requiring some sort of device, where instead of thinking of the idea like, oh, wait, a digital file is going to be like its own kind of thing that requires like nobody thought about thumb drives.
Right.
Because how does a thumb drive work? I don't even know how a thumb drive work. You just plug it in. But like CDs are a technology that people understand to a certain point, certain extent. Mm-hmm. Escape from LA is a great sci-fi CD subplot.
Actually, yeah, the music on that movie was better than the movie itself.
Yeah. Same
with Last Action Hero.
Oh, don't talk bad about Last Action Hero.
I'm defending the first half of that movie.
Okay.
Where the hell is this band? Okay, track listings. Chris Carter. Shit. No, this is all. Hey, Shirley Walker did some of this. How did she do techno? Shirley, you were old school.
Hey, she's very talented.
Babe, what do you know? I thought she died before this happened.
How do you feel about the sports car design?
Oh, the dragster with the giant metal wheels. Not a fan.
You should draw that into your book.
Okay, I can't find the. I'll do this for the next episode. There's a lot of 90s bands I think that just came and went that were on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the car. I like the motorcycles, by the way.
Yeah, those are kind of cool.
The one that Terry steals looks a lot like the one I gave Jason Todd on the cover I showed you recently.
Right.
Kind of futuristic bike, slightly extended front end, red.
Mm-hmm. It actually, the designs of the bikes in this reminded me of some of the way it reminded me of the Tokyo Ghost bike a bit, because it had that big, like, beefy middle section and then the really long kind of
extended nose.
Yeah, not angular. What the hell are they called?
Yeah, the trees.
Instead of angular, it's more straight out. It reminded me a lot of the Tokyo Ghost bike.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love that kind of bike design, even though it doesn't technically make sense, because like turning, it's
gives a shit.
I know.
Nobody cares. Just as long as it looks cool.
Yeah.
What would you draw?
I didn't think about this.
I mean, this is the future, though. Maybe we should change it to like, what would you holographically represent via 3D projection?
This is a comic art podcast.
Okay.
We have to stick with our gimmick. What would you draw?
I think it's tough because like there's so much stuff to really digest in this. I don't love the stormtrooper guards. They look a lot like Shriek, who shows up in a few episodes.
Yeah, whose costume I do like.
Yeah, his costume is cool.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about some of those background characters, and I was like, I think I'd really like to draw the Joker gang.
Yeah.
Because I like what they're doing here, but I think there's a lot of stuff you can play with in there to make those guys look really cool.
Right. Yeah. I think I might stick with the motorcycle escape scene, because it's not just they're on these roads; they're skidding down the side of a. I mean, Terry's obviously a stunt motorcycle driver.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, showing a lot of Batman capability, even though he's only 17 or whatever. Yeah, I can't really think of a better answer. I tell you, I'm not looking forward to drawing Powers when he turns into a green skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
He calls himself Blight.
Okay.
And I may or may not have him be that in my book.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do have him do that, I'm not looking forward to it, because I don't feel like I don't know what I would do with Green Ghost Rider.
Okay.
In a way, it could be really easy, because you just draw like a chalky black sooty skull, and then I can just use my fingerprints and shit to make it whatever. But I'll figure it out. But I'm not looking forward to wrapping my head around that.
He's probably gonna require a lot of black backgrounds around him.
Yeah.
So you can define the green arms and stuff.
It helps frame, honestly. Yeah. I hate to admit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call that a hotspot when you carve it out. It's like in photography, the hotspot's like the very bright white area.
Oh, sure,
I think.
Where the contrast is the highest. And
I think
stuff.
so, yeah.
What would you rate this? We usually do that, right? We haven't done this in a while. Okay.
I'm gonna go 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I would agree.
Cool.
We didn't even talk about Ace.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Great addition.
Yeah.
Ace the Bat Hound, I believe, is a character from the 50s that they repurposed here.
You're right, because I asked you, like, I don't think they ever explained why they named him Ace.
Mm-hmm.
And in my book, I actually come up with what I think is a clever reason. I can't really talk about it because it'll spoil something. But yeah, like you've pointed out, he's been Ace since the 60s. Yeah. And I said, well, why did they name him Ace then? And we still don't really know.
He's great at poker.
That's pretty close to actually where I go.
Oh, really?
In my book,
is he one of the original dogs from the painting of the dogs playing poker? Is that why?
Who painted that anyway?
I don't know. And somehow that painting is a key plot element to Beyond the White Knight.
Cool.
These are the kind of insights I bring to the project.
Right. That's good, man. So sorry to interrupt you, but I have a more important thing to talk to you about right now, right?
Okay.
So 2 contenders for best rock lyrics.
Yeah.
One is Stevie Nicks.
Interesting.
Thunder only happens when it's raining, and players only love you when they're playing. I think for women who love music like rock, I think that's pretty epic for a lady.
Okay.
And of course you can like it if you're a man, but Stevie Nicks is singing it, and you know how men, catfish around and women are annoyed by it.
Sure.
I think for a woman that's a pretty epic song. And then the other one was fuck. I should have written it down. Did you have any other contenders that you came up with?
Keep on Rockin' Me Baby by Steve No, I don't. That's about as middle of the road as you can get.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's a tough thing to parse out, because I mean, you put those parameters on it that it has to be something like something chantable or memorable, and
right.
because I mean, once you move into like heavy metal, it's all over the place. You've
Yeah,
got like
yeah.
Holy Diver,
Right. Yeah.
generals gathered in their masses, just like
Right.
witches at black masses.
Yeah. A little wordy, but good.
Yeah.
Oh, the other one I thought of was
We're not going to take it.
yeah,
That's
I thought
a pretty
of
good
that
one.
too. But that's that lyric isn't clever. It's just the energy that the Twisted Sister had.
It's the only song that I've ever heard finish a rhyme with the word condescending, which I appreciate.
Yeah, you're right. I never thought that's a. All right, so what about fuck, I had it. Once upon a time I was falling in love, but Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Total Eclipse of the Heart. Okay.
So those
sure.
aren't. I know.
I was going to say most of them are Jim Steinman lyrics. If you're really going to get down to it, what you're defining are just Jim Steinman lyrics.
Yeah. So I know that Bonnie Tyler is not the '80s glory rock band thing that we're talking about, like arena rock. But I felt like those. I don't know why. I picked up those two that same day, and I thought they were contenders. But for a certain type of listener.
Yeah.
Still though, the wheel in the sky keeps on turning.
Wheel in the sky. Oh, did I send you that? Have you seen that new digital thing where you just like type in words and it draws from the internet and makes like an abstract painting?
No.
It's really kind of fun. Someone on the Discord did one for Wheel in the Sky. It was pretty awesome. Based on that, you might be right. Because it was this abstract, like, kind of cityscape thing with this giant wave, like circular wave of color rolling through the sky. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So maybe we base it on that. I don't know.
Epic. Yeah, epic. I have a friend who works for Spotify, and I guess they just rolled out the ability to search songs through lyrics.
Oh, cool.
Or
That's very helpful.
They're gonna roll it out, or they did roll it out. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be very helpful because as anyone who grew up in the early days of digital music know,
Yeah.
most people only know the names of songs by the lyrics of the songs.
Yeah, by the refrain, by the chorus.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's why everybody has "Hey Lady" by Led Zeppelin on their computer instead of "Over the Hills and Far Away" because nobody knows the name of that song.
It's true. Yeah, you could do a whole podcast on mislabeled rock songs. So the song "Last Dance with Mary Jane" by Tom Petty was gonna be called "Indiana Girl."
Wow.
And then at the last minute, he scratched it out and wrote "Last Dance with Mary Jane," which is the chorus, which is much better.
Yeah.
There's like one lyric in there that's like "an Indiana girl from an Indiana town" or something.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah. And like, oh, come on, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you fixed it at the last minute, so that's good.
I would say this is not playing by the rules. I would say that the most epic rock lyric is not a rock lyric at all. It's the drum fill from "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins. It doesn't get much better than that, honestly. Like,
yeah.
Who I have a copy of the Miami Vice soundtrack on vinyl that has that song on it.
Yeah.
It can't play that song because it skips over that bit, like exactly where the drum fill comes in.
That's the point of that song.
I think whoever owned it before, I was a used copy, whoever owned it before played that specific part over and over and over and over again and fucked up the record.
Yeah.
So now I have to, like, when I know it's coming, I have to nudge the player so it jumps in the right way. But I mean,
yeah. It's funny. So that song to me is sort of timeless, and there's a couple of songs, like a lot of songs like that, where it doesn't sound like it's the 80s. It just sounds like it's its own thing.
Yeah.
And that song also, there's not as much to it as people think, and I kind of wanted a longer version that was a little bit more complex. Because once you have the slow build up and the swell and the silence and all that, like the silence is the biggest part of that song, is how quiet it is.
Right.
And you could argue it kind of falls apart towards the end, but it's so short it doesn't matter.
You could argue, but you'd be wrong.
Like everyone loves the first half of that song, but like you could argue you'd be wrong. Yeah, there was another song I had like that recently where it sort of was timeless in a way. Sweet Dreams Are Made of These.
Oh, sure.
It's kind of timeless, even though synthesizers like that were big in the 80s. Anyway, no one's tuning in to listen to this, so we can move on to the Batman.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening. If you'd like to support the show, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/thepenskyfile, where you can hear Sean and I talk about the Batman. There's also an episode up there that should be up at this point about where Sean and I talk about the Batman White Knight Red Hood that we're both been working on. That's going to be coming out later this year. I don't know if I'm technically allowed to say that, but
you are.
Whatever.
I'm in charge. You are.
Okay. A lot of information about that. Plus, we've got all of our regular Patreon stuff that I do with Wes for the main Pensky File podcast, and the horror movie show that I do with Amanda. this year, every month we're doing one of the second stringer Stephen King adaptations. So we've got a main list we work on.
Nice.
And these are ones that are not on that main list.
Are you going to do Pet Sematary 2?
I don't think we're going to be doing Pet Sematary 2. I think we're doing the first one.
All right.
January, we did It Chapter 2. February was Silver Bullet. March is Salem's Lot, the original Salem's Lot. And I'm not sure.
Cool.
I know one of them is going to be Christine, the John Carpenter movie, which I'm excited about because I've never seen it. So
I didn't know.
That's one of the few of Carpenter movies I haven't seen.
I want to see that too now. Yeah. I'm not a horror guy, but Carpenter, for some reason, just checks a lot of boxes for me.
Yeah, he kind of occupies like a middle ground where it's like he does horror stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily call his movies horror.
Right.
Some of them, yes, obviously, but like, what do you call They Live? It's kind of horror, but it's more sci-fi. I think it's probably more of a sci-fi movie.
Of a throwback 50s sci-fi.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah. Which I just saw that movie for the first time recently.
That's great.
That fight in the alley with his buddy.
So good.
Takes up a lot of time.
Yeah. I don't know how they let him do that.
Get along. What the hell's going on? And then he just disappears at the end.
That's like when you realize nobody is watching what you're doing. When you just show up and you're like, 5-minute fight.
It's so strong at the beginning. Like, man, this is such a great concept. Like, I'd love to draw this, but wait, why is this fight taking so long? This is so weird.
I feel like it was like, we got a wrestler. Let's just do some of that stuff.
Fine. There's other ways to do it, though. Let's have him fight his friend.
They do. That fight scene in that movie is longer than some wrestling match, actual wrestling matches.
I look forward to joining you, Wes, on a Voyager podcast from time to time.
Oh, that's right.
I really want to get in on that. I think that was it from me.
Yeah, we're doing, Wes and I are doing Voyager on the main show, and then on Patreon we're doing Picard weekly when that comes out. Because we didn't know if we wanted to watch it, and if we're getting paid to watch it, it's a little bit easier to do.
I was watching the Redbubble guys.
The Red Letter Media guys.
And they had the same discussion. One guy was like, "Let's watch it," and they're like, "I don't want to watch this. I haven't watched Discovery." Paramount blocked them on Twitter because they didn't put out favorable reviews to Picard.
Or something. The tweet that guy sent out was. I don't want to say it was blockable because that's a personal thing, but it's like it was a pretty intense tweet. It was really funny though.
Anyway, they didn't want to do Picard either, and now they kind of are because I guess they just have to.
Yeah. Well, we actually got a pretty good bump on Patreon once we started doing that, so people want to hear it.
It's good because I was gonna fund you completely to do Voyager just so I could torture the two of you, and now I don't have to.
Well, you got to watch it because if we dip below $900,
right.
We're not doing the full Voyager. We're only.
I
got to
put my Patreon because I switched my credit cards and I think I dropped you accidentally, but I'll put you back on.
Sure. Yep.
You
hear a lot of that when the month rolls over on Patreon. But thank you guys for listening. We will be back next time with
Airplane Boner,
with Blackout and Golem. Thanks, guys.